All right, we'll go ahead and begin the meeting. First bill on the agenda is House Bill 310. This bill simply changes the number of days you have to get a license tag after you purchase a vehicle from 7 to 30 days. I think people have been lamenting about during the freeze, they weren't able to get their tag in, they got penalized. And so that we're just trying to extend the number of days you have to get a tag. We had to add a section for it to conform on the fees. So that is an explanation of the bill. Simply goes from 7 days to 30 days. Are there any questions on the strike all? Seeing none, for a motion to adopt the strike all. All right. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Any other questions or motion? Motion is title sufficient do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next on the agenda is House Bill 430. This is the House version of a direct ship bill. After talking to several of y'all and trying to come up with something, I think that has a chance to see the floor and be voted on. We've kind of slimmed it down from what the House original version was. Section 1 deals with the definitions in the bill. Section 2 is who must hold a permit to ship into Mississippi, a direct shipper permit. Section 3 are the qualifications for a direct shipper's permit. Section 4 are the requirements for the permit, the application. Section 5 is essentially the requirements on a direct shipper and a reporting requirement that they would report to the Department of Revenue on a quarterly basis. Section 6 is speaks to the renewal of the permit. Section 7 requirement to purchase and receive into the state, what you have to do as a citizen. Section 8 speaks to the violations on participating transports or imports, receive, sales, shipment in violation of this. Speaks to the misdemeanor and the fine. Section 9 is a wine fulfillment permit section and transporting permit. Section 10 also speaks on the delivery. Section 11 has where the rules can be done by the department as necessary to carry out sections 1 through 12 of this act and the enforcement provisions. On line 437 and 438, it speaks to the permit fees for a direct shipper's permit and a wine fulfillment provider permit. It's $100 for a direct shipper and $500 for a wine fulfillment provider permit. On 551, it speaks to the tax charged on the sale of the wine at 15.5%. The Section 16 states that 3% of this fee will go to the mental health fund. Section 18 speaks to the native wines state. On line 1331 is the definition of a direct shipper's permit, and the definition on line 1337 of a wine fulfillment provider permit defines those two permits. And that is a brief description of the House bill. It's similar to other bills we've seen, and this one does have a reverse repealer. There is some things we want to verify with the Department of Revenue that the reporting requirements are satisfactory, and so that's a definition, explanation of the bill. I'll be happy to yield for any questions. Senator Younger for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much wine are they allowed to order? Is it in section?
It is in here. It's in section
9.
I believe so.
Bless you. Bless you.
It's on line 172 through 186. Thank you. Senator Chasnoff for a question.
A comment at the proper time, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Senator McMahon for a question.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. So let's say in the event that I hold a package store permit and I wanted to create a business opportunity and have an exclusivity with a distiller somewhere in the US. If I was a packaging store, if I held the permit for a packaging store, could I also have a direct shipper's permit and a wine and distilled spirits fulfillment provider permit?
No, not according to this bill.
This is what?
No, I don't believe that speaks to this bill.
So what if I had a restaurant? What if I owned a retail permit, and I wanted to create an atmosphere where I had exclusivity of some type and I had the only special batch bourbon from one of the bourbon companies in America? Could I hold direct shipper's permit or the wine distilled spirits fulfillment provider permit as well as my retail permit?
Yeah, this bill only allows for the holder of a Class II manufacturing, which is a wine.
Okay,
or
so
person
let me,
permitted outside the state. This is only for personal consumption only, is what the bill speaks to.
so only a resident, not a
Yes.
retailer, or
Not a
no one else could
retailer.
buy the permit. Does the bill prohibit?
Yeah, it only,
pa-
this bill only speaks to personal consumption only.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking
Thank
my
you.
questions.
Senator Suber for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 146, it states that you can't ship wine or distilled spirits in an area in which the sale of alcoholic beverages is not legal. And I think I asked this question a month or so ago, but like, what do we mean by area? I mean, is it,
Are you on the strike all or are you on the original bill? Which,
maybe the original bill? All right, well, I'll track my question. Let me look at the strike off.
because 146 just says wine, but 147 says sell or ship to any non-residential address, including locker or post office box.
I'll track my question at the current time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Senator England for a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to confirm that this is just dealing with wine,
Yes.
direct shipment of wine in Mississippi.
Mhm.
Okay, I would also have a comment after Senator Chasnoff, if I can be recognized.
All right. Any other questions on the strike all? Seeing none, Senator Chasnoff you speak on the strike all?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're dragging out the same old bill that we had earlier, and I can tell you that the 700 independent businesses who are the package store owners in Mississippi are opposed to this. If you have any package stores in your district, you might want to check with them and see how they feel about it. And that's all I have to say. And plus 9 liters and 9 cases. I mean, I think I'm in a really lucky spot when my little 18 bottle wine rack is full. I can only imagine I wouldn't be able to store all of that. I don't know many people who could. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Senator. Senator England, speak on the strike all.
Thank you, Senator Harkins. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I think it's time for us to consider moving this out of committee and getting it on the floor where our colleagues can take a look at it. I understand that there are some concerns from our packaged liquor stores, but I also know that other states that allow direct ship also have packaged liquor stores, and they seem to be doing fine every time I go out of state and look at them. I do understand that there's also a niche group of wine producers that have arisen in the country that provide clean wine, organic wine, and they don't provide their wines in stores. So currently, we're keeping Mississippians from even having the option of purchasing those specific wines. So I have heard from many consumers, and now even if I've heard from my packaged liquor stores, I also have to say I've heard from a lot of consumers, a lot more consumers that would appreciate the opportunity to go to other states and have wine shipped directly to their homes here in the state of Mississippi. And if I recall correctly, earlier this year, we passed a bill out of this committee that allowed for distillers of wine and other beverages in the state of Mississippi to have additional warehouse space so that they could accommodate customers in other states. So we are allowing our wineries to ship directly to consumers in other states that allow this, which, by the way, I think that's all but maybe us and one other state. And it's just time for us to get on board with that. If we're going to vote this down today, I would suggest that we have an amendment to the bill, and I'd be happy to make that. If we would like to do so, if the chairman would like to hear the amendment, I'll just give a brief explanation. It would be to disallow Mississippi wineries and Mississippi distillers from shipping out of state, because if our concern is that we don't want direct shipment, but we're allowing folks here to do it, we're just not being fair. We're not being fair to our consumers, and we're holding up progress here in the state in this purpose. Now that I've mentioned the amendment, I'll say that I'm not going to make that amendment. I just think that that's how crazy we're being when we look at this particular issue. We are holding up our state on this. I think it's time for us to move this. We're going to keep hearing about it. Let's get it to the floor and let our other colleagues hear about this and get it for a vote. That is my request of the committee members, and my comment on this bill. I ask everyone to vote yes.
Okay. All right, seeing no further questions, Senator Jordan, you got a question?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification. Now, if this is done privately, why would the liquor stores have anything to do with it if a person wanted to order it privately?
I'm not.
This bill, what this bill does, it doesn't have to come through the liquor store, does it? If a person decides they want to order it privately,
No.
why shouldn't they have that right?
It would be coming directly from the winery.
But if one wished to do so, what problem would the winery have to do with it?
The winery doesn't have a problem. I think what Senator Chasnoff said, that the package stores are against it. Would you like to answer the question, Senator
Oh, it's
Chasnoff?
competitive. So it would be in competition with the package stores.
Senator Jordan, I've heard from a number of the package stores in our district, and that includes LaFleur County, which you and I both represent. And no one has called me and said they think it's a good idea to do this.
I
So-
just wanted clarification. I
Yes, sir.
figured,
I've
that's-
heard from a number of individual package store owners, and they feel like it's it's threatening to their
Oh, I see.
to their livelihood.
So the competitiveness is what's involved here.
Yes, sir. And there's 700 package stores in Mississippi.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chestnut.
All right, any other questions? Senator England for a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So if I understand Senator Chasnoff's comment to Senator Jordan just now, are we protecting certain industries here in the state if we don't pass this bill? This is we're not going to allow this to go forward in order to provide protection from the state government from competition. Is that what we're doing?
I think what this bill does is it's allowing people to decide if they want to order some wines that they may not be able to get on from ABC, or if there's a specialty wine that's not available, it allows them to order directly.
And I'm just, the only opposition I'm hearing is from packaged liquor stores that oppose that idea, presumably because they want you to come to their store and not allow consumers the right to join Wine of the Month Club, purchase clean wine that's not available in their stores. By clean, I mean organic wine. That's basically what we're doing here. We're just allowing packaged liquor stores. If we vote this down, we're allowing them to dictate where consumers can get their wine. Is that correct?
That's your words, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, is it, motion is to adopt the strike all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? You want division? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Seven. All right, all those opposed? All right. That's the motion for the strike. All right, so the strike all fails. We're on the original bill. Okay. So you're back on the original bill. Does anybody want to discuss the original bill? Senator England.
I certainly think we ought to pass the original bill. Let's move it forward. I would offer an amendment to the original bill, which if it doesn't have it already, I haven't looked because we were talking about the strike off. It doesn't have a reverse repealer. I would make that amendment just to keep this alive and help us move something forward.
It may be the only thing not in the bill. So if you want to add a reverse repealer,
Well, let's add reverse repealer, and if we can think of anything else to add to it while we're here, I'm happy to do it. That's my amendment. If I'm recognized to make the amendment, it would be to add a reverse repealer to the original bill.
all right. Any questions on the amendment? Thank God. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? That's close. The ayes have it. On the original bill with the reverse repealer, are there any other further questions? Or a motion? Oh, Senator Finnegan, do you have? That's a motion. Title sufficient do not pass. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? No. Oh, it's a little closer. No division been requested. All those in favor of killing the bill, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A parliamentary inquiry. What are we voting on?
Senator Bryan, we are on the original bill. The strike all failed. And so we're back on the original bill, and it has been amended to add a reverse repealer.
But the motion, I understood title sufficient do not pass.
Yes.
That sends the bill to the Senate. That puts the bill on the calendar. That does not kill the bill.
Title sufficient do not pass, puts it on the,
Unless I'm mistaken, that sends the bill to the Senate.
council,
You could withdraw the motion, say title sufficient pass and ask the body to vote no, which is what.
You
we
can
do for
withdraw the
adoption of
amendment.
subs.
you want to draw? Senator Finnegan, you're recognized. Okay. Senator Finnegan has withdrawn his motion and substitute motion. The substitute motion is title sufficient do pass, and he is as amended. You heard the request. You can state your motion again, Senator Finnegan. You have heard the motion. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Division, all those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8.
Wait.
Eight, all right. All those opposed, raise your hand. All right, those have it. That bill is dead. Next bill. This is House Bill 1161. This simply removes the restriction on the number of residents in order to vote to come out to allow the sale of alcohol. Right now, there's a prohibition on cities with population under 5,000 voting. This just removes the population minimum. That's an explanation of the bill. All right, are any questions on the bill? Senator England?
Mr. Chairman, do we know where packaged liquor stores stand on this bill?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Motion is title sufficient do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next bill is House Bill 1190, and I believe Senator Williams is here. Senator Williams, if you want to come up, this is a strike all, I believe, with the Senate language that Senator Williams presented. Senator Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. This is the same bill that we passed out a few weeks ago. It just allows IHLs, if they acquire property or an entity owned by them, foundations adjacent to their campuses inside or outside the city, they can, this bill will equip them to let the same alcohol be the same throughout campus, just to have uniform alcohol codes. That's all it does.
All right, you heard an explanation. Senator England for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Williams, I understand, so this would allow for alcohol to be sold at sporting events, is that correct?
It depends on what the policy is at the specific university. If it does have that policy to do that and a piece of real estate was acquired that had a sporting event on it, yes, it would. Yes, sir.
So it could allow it?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Have you heard from your local packaged liquor stores as to whether they're okay with that kind of competition being allowed?
I have not. I will try to inquire, though.
We might want to check on that. Thank you, Senator Williams.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for a motion on the strike all? Motion is to adopt the strike all. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any
Thank you,
further
Mr. Chairman.
questions? Motion is title sufficient do pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next is House Bill 1417. This is a bill, comes from our friend in the House, that is looking to amend the healthcare industry zone from a 5 mile to an 8 mile radius. We've had a few people inquire about this, and so I believe Senator Johnson has an amendment for reverse repeal to continue to discuss the bill further in conference. But are there any questions on the bill before I recognize Senator Johnson for his amendment? Senator Blunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that Senator Johnson is going to be offering that amendment. I believe when we passed this, by the time the legislature got through with the original idea, that I think 82 counties qualified as healthcare zones, if I'm not mistaken. And my concern with this is that we're not attracting any new businesses or investment to the state. We are simply moving around the providers that we already have to maybe move from one place to another place. So I think it needs a little bit more study, and I'm glad that Senator Johnson is going to be offering that amendment to allow us time to do that.
Thank you. All right. No further questions. Senator Johnson, you're recognized for your amendment.
My amendment would be to add a reverse repeal.
All right. You heard the amendment. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Back on the original bill, Senator Bryan for a question.
Mr. Chairman, I wish we could, before at some point, get some accurate information about all these healthcare zones, because I read the text of this bill and it doesn't seem to fit with what my understanding was. But Senator Blunt is correct. Once upon a time, there was going to be a healthcare zone, generally speaking, around the University of Mississippi Medical Center and the medical mall in the area here where there are a lot of hospitals in Jackson. And by the time it was amended, I honestly think it included like 79 out of 82 counties. One wonders what was wrong with the other 3. And I can't keep up with all of these things that we do. And I just wish the chair at some point could help us get somebody from NBA or whoever it is that's in charge of this to talk to us about what's going on. And if if anything at all has been accomplished by this.
Thank you, Senator. We'll reach out and see if we can get some clearance on some of these issues y'all are bringing up. Any further questions on the bill? Seeing none for a motion. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The eye has it. Next bill is House Bill 1473. This strike all is basically the Senate language on the bonds to cash bill to clean up language. We went over the language. It was actually a little bit of a discrepancy on some of the community college amounts that was corrected, but this is basically the Senate language that we passed, taking some of the projects that are outstanding that are currently underway, and instead of bonding using cash to pay for some of them, this has got a reverse repealer in it, believe. Yeah, it does. So this is to keep it alive if that we so choose to use this vehicle at a later date. That is an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions? Senator Brown for a question.
Is this 1473 that we're talking about?
Yes.
Is it, if we're going to do this, is it the idea that every bond issue that's currently authorized will either go forward as a bond issue or be funded out of appropriations? This is not an attempt to undo something we've already passed that's in progress, is it?
No, it's basically like some of these on university campuses across all of our universities and our community colleges. There are projects that are out there that may have a couple of $1 million left on the project that we've authorized bonds for. It's specific about what project and the bond and moving it to cash. It's not all there's a lot of bonds that are authorized that are out there that that this does not speak to. This is more specifically on IHL and community colleges and a couple of old Schultz, Yokohama, and Top Ship, some of those projects that are finished that have a balance of bond authorization in that were taken away.
Okay, well, thank you. Obviously, neither I nor anyone else can read the bill and have a clue what we're doing, but understand the.
Yeah, the gist is just to kind of clean up some of there's old bond issues for the Civil Rights Museum, for Pat Harrison Park improvements, for Grand Gulf Access Road. There's things that aren't being used that have authorization out there that we're just cleaning up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So any other questions on the strike all? Motion's adopt the strike all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any further questions? Seeing none. For motion. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next is House Bill 1589. The strike all comes to us. This is a bill dealing with scrapping of cars and the liens that are placed on them. This basically changes the time requirement that a lien holder has to notify a discharge, a release and discharge of a lien on a motor vehicle to the department no later. And right now it says 10 days in here. We're going to, Senator Johnson has an amendment to change that and to add another group to it besides the scrap metal folks. This is going to apply to the used auto parts dealer and scrap metal, but it just changes from 10 days to 14 days that they have to notify the department to release a lien on a vehicle. And they will use this, the department's platform to check cars that are coming in to be scrapped for parts or for metal. So that's an explanation of the bill. There's some reporting requirements with the department that we want to work with them on further. So there is going to be, I believe, reverse repealer also added to it. But that is an explanation of the bill. I'll be happy to yield for any questions before I recognize Senator Johnson. Seeing none, Senator Johnson, you're recognized for an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment would have three parts. The first part would be to change the 10 days to 14 days for the time that the lien holder has to notify the Department of Revenue. That change would take place on lines 186 and 191. And the second part of the amendment would be to add used auto parts dealer or used auto parts dealer after scrap metal processor. The intent was to have both, and we only put the scrap metal processor. So simply adding that would be on lines 274, 291, 295, and 388. And then the final part of the amendment would be to add a reverse repealer.
All right, you've heard the amendment. Are there any further questions? Seeing none.
Move adoption of the amendment.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any further questions on the strike all?
Motion is to adopt the strike all.
Motion, we adopt the strike all. Oh, Senator Bryan, you have a question?
No, I just had, this is 1618.
No,
We're on
1589.
Oh, I'm on the next one.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
a motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next is House Bill 1618. I'll recognize Senator Johnson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1618 came on the request from UMMC, and it's regarding the definition of instrumentality to include healthcare collaborative. UMMC has been working under a 2017 law that that set up the opportunity for them to be more flexible in the market, to be competitive with other hospitals. And they've been operating under a collaborative, but there's some questions on ambiguity in the law that we currently have. So this would just clean up any ambiguities and let them continue to operate as they currently are. And that's an explanation of what the bill does.
Are there any questions on the bill? Seeing none, for motion.
Motion is to adopt the strike all.
Motion, we adopt the strike all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion title sufficient, do pass as amended.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The aye has it again. Thank you, Senator Filligan. Next is House Bill 1620. The strike all in front of you, or this isn't a strike all, is it? Oh yeah, this is strike all. This is the Senate language that we passed on the use tax to allow for cities and counties to utilize use tax money for equipment to be used for the purposes that are allowed in the definition for the use of use tax dollars. Mainly this is equipment, tractors, anything they use to pave roads or work on streets, sewer, water, stormwater issues. So this just allows them, this is the Senate language that was passed earlier. So that is the explanation of the bill. Are there any questions on the bill? All right. Motion is title sufficient, or you gotta adopt this right? Is this one? Yes. Motion is adopt the strike all. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any other questions? Senator Bryan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry as I can be. I simply cannot hear what's going on. I can't tell what bills we're on, what motions we're on.
This is House Bill
Again, it's
1620.
just this system, the sound system that we have in here, and we did not used to have this problem. But my concern, Mr. Chairman, was with the bill revolving the retirement system. And my concern is this. The retirement system has a debt. This debt has come about because the legislature passed laws giving benefits to retirees and current state employees. And that the money going into the system was not sufficient to pay for that. That's the problem the retirement system has. And this has come about through a number of factors, but one of the factors is the privatization of first one thing and another, coupled with the shrinking payroll because of fewer employees, and I would argue underpaid employees. so that the payroll itself is shrinking. And it's certainly less than had been anticipated. The only tool that the Board of PERS has to get revenue is to assess payroll. They're not assessing payroll because they don't think it hurts anybody or, it's just a whim. They're required by law to do that. And so we've got to get revenue for the system one way or another. One of the things that we could do, which I think we should consider, is having some assessment on privatized contracts. And what I would do in this circumstance, Mr. Chairman, is, and I just mentioned 5% is a amount that I've made up out of a clear blue sky, but we could impose an assessment of 5% on this contract to be paid to the retirement system. And for other privatized things, we could have an assessment of some amount on the payroll of the privatized entity, because what's happening is you've got some employees who are not carrying their fair share of the pay down on the debt. And so I was not going to oppose House Bill 1618, but I think, Mr. Chairman, that the problem is not the board. The problem is not the returns. The problem is not the fees. The problem is the money going into the system is not sufficient to fund the debt. And I think that's what we should consider. So thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Senator. Sorry, you didn't hear us move on that bill. I would have recognized you to speak on. I apologize. But right now we are on the use tax bill. And are you?
I know I was cheating.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you for being honest. All right.
I thought that
Are we
was
gonna-
simpler than trying to reconsider and go through all.
Are we going to allow rebuttal since we're past the bill? Because if so, I'd like to be recognized for the rebuttal.
We'll do it on the floor.
Thank you.
So we are back on the bill. We've adopted the, have we? Yeah, we're on we're on adoption, title sufficient do pass as amended on House Bill 1620. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. The next bill is House Bill 1638. This is a strike all with Senator Fillingane. Your language in your bill, you want to, the DHS. Thank you, Senator. Any other questions on the bill, on the strike all? Seeing none. All right, Senator Jordan, you have a question?
Does this bill include government officials who have dealt with DHS and misuse funds? If they fall in the category. So I understand, but I thought that's what this bill about, what the government has done in terms of those funds, which is a lot of money, as we all know. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Senator Horn for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Fillingane, can you tell me if this is a widespread problem?
Thank you, Senator Horn. I do not believe it's a widespread problem. I think that, you know, there are investigations that go on, and I think there were detection of an average of about 300 overpayment cases each month. So I guess depending on your assessment, it's 300 a month, given that population probably isn't widespread by any stretch, but it happens.
And I would assume that we're talking about a relatively small amount of money.
Yes, this language only applies in cases of where the amount is in question in excess of $125. So if it's under $125, there's no, it doesn't apply in that instance.
And does the department plan to contract with a third-party provider to help manage this program?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir. They never told me about any plans to do so.
But it is conceivable that they might go to a third-party
I
provider.
know some of their child support cases are managed by like outside legal firms, which I'm not a huge fan of personally. But no, I haven't heard of any plans to do that in this instance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Horn. Any other questions? Senator Horn, excuse me, Senator Bryan. I'll get you next, Senator Bryan.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Chairman, having read the language on line 185 and following, if I'm at the right place, this provides for disclosure of an income tax return to, for example, a municipality that's trying to collect the fine, if I'm reading it right, and I think that's existing law. They don't need to see the return. If there is an offset, then that ought to be handled internally within the tax commission. But if I read this correctly, that means if somebody's got a fine, a municipality can actually look at their tax return. They don't have any business doing that. And I don't know that that's the intent, but that's what it says. And I'm mighty leery. And one of my first concerns with the current state auditor, and let me tell you, they have increased exponentially since then, was a situation in which the Department of Audit was going to go look at people's tax returns. And I suggested there needed to be some sort of restriction on that. And the current state auditor let me know right quickly there didn't need to be any sort of restriction, that the audit department was just fine. They could look at folks' tax returns and that'd be the end of it. And if in this case, what the city needs to know is there some refund that I can access? But they don't need to look at the return itself. And I would just hope that we look much more carefully at that language on 185, and I may be misreading it, but I was just concerned to see if that does what I think it does.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would agree with Senator Bryan if that's what it did, but I think that's current language. I don't think that's new language contemplated in this bill that he's referring to. I think the purpose of this new language is to allow what you were saying, if in fact there's an amount that's deemed owed back to the state, then the DHS would be able to attach that and get it if it was over $125.
Any further questions, Senator Bryan? Any further question? Okay. Senator Brumfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Fillingham, I'm wondering, have you assessed the cost that that would be associated with the monitoring or however our findings here? What is the cost? And
Well-
how's that compared to the actual findings that you anticipate?
Great question, and thank you for it. I think there's already a unit within DHS that investigates this. And so that cost is already built in. So you're not looking at additional costs. Really what you're looking at, once the investigative unit determines that a person, again, most likely unintentionally, they just didn't get the information quickly enough to DHS that, you know, they've got a new job or better income, whatever. And so now they don't qualify for these benefits. And now there's a deficiency amount that is owed back to the state. So the investigative unit is already in place at DHS. Now the question is, what do you do with it? Now you know someone owes the money back and you've contacted them and they don't have means of paying it back immediately. Do we allow them to attach the income tax returns as far as refunds, in other words, and get the money owed back to the state from the income tax refund or not? And this language would allow them to do that.
At no additional cost?
Well, no additional cost. I mean, the unit's already there, the investigation's already taken place, so those dollars are already expended. So now the question is, do you allow the state to recoup the monies that are lost from the income tax refund or not?
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, for a motion. Adopt. Motion, we adopt a strike all. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? No. The ayes have it. We will go to the next bill, which is House Bill 1647. This bill is a bill relating to kind of what we started having a conversation about with Commissioner Cheney on the state-based exchange. And I believe the proposed strike all in front of you has a reverse repealer to allow us to keep having conversations about this and on whether or not we possibly want to start a state-based exchange. It's kind of up in the air. I think there's a lot of conversation around it. This bill is a vehicle to allow us to keep that conversation going. I will be happy to entertain any questions on the bill, but that is an explanation of it. It's trying to set up a state-based exchange in the state that the state insurance commissioner would run. Senator Bryan for a question.
Do we have any idea what the cost would be for all of these various tax credits and tax deductions that are provided for?
No, and that's a good question, and that's why we want to keep the vehicle alive I'm probably going to hold another hearing on that specifically. I think we kind of scratched the surface last hearing we had, and I'm going to invite the insurance commissioner back, and I'll get with the department and see what kind of information we can come up with specifically on the state-based exchange.
Well, I mean, there's so many moving parts to this, but I know that there are some sort of deductions and credits and various provisions in federal tax law, and I just don't know how all this would fit with that.
I agree. I mean, there are credits for employers, there's credits for individuals. So we do need to get a better fit on all that, and also the cost of actually setting this up. I think that was one thing Commissioner Cheney talked about. They were going to look into seeing kind of what the cost expectations were on starting something up like this, and where are we going to get the funds from. So there are a lot of questions out there. I think this just gives us a vehicle that if we so choose to do it, after getting more information on it, we have the opportunity to do it. If not, we can vote it down and come back next year. Or if we just don't have enough information and feel comfortable moving forward, we don't have to move on it, so. Any other questions? Senator England?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know you mentioned you're going to have the commissioner back to ask questions. So I just want to get this question out there. If you have an answer, be fine as well. When we heard on the hearing from Commissioner Cheney, he mentioned, when he was asked about the cost issue, he mentioned a certain amount that was in the high-risk fund, I believe is what he referred to. And I was just wondering what that high-risk fund is, how that, where those funds come from, and what we currently use those for.
That's a question you can ask him at our next hearing we have when I can get him lined up to come. That's precisely why we want to keep a vehicle alive, to keep asking those questions and to get better answers.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Motion to adopt a strike all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Any further questions? Motion is title sufficient do pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. Next bill is 1665. This is the Capital Complex Improvement District bill. This is a bill to incentivize development in the Capital Complex Improvement District in the CCID. There's some interest in this bill moving forward. I'm not specifically sure about what project, but it does have a vehicle. I've heard from several other people about some options on trying to redevelop and work on housing issues within the CCID and some other things I think are worthwhile keeping this vehicle open for those possibilities and for further discussion. So I'm going to recognize Senator Johnson to add a reverse repealer on the bill to keep it alive for us to continue having conversations with the House and other members on the bill. So Senator Horn for a question.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate any efforts to spur development in the city of Jackson. It appears to me, however, that where the development is needed the most is outside of the Capital Complex Improvement District. There are areas of West Jackson, South Jackson that are sorely in need of economic development. And I wonder why we're not targeting those areas as opposed to an area that's flourishing and doing rather well. This is my first time reading the bill. I read it very quickly while sitting here. If I understand it correctly, the enhance for anybody who puts a building or a project in service, the assessed valuation, the current assessed valuation is the benchmark, and then any future assessments that are above and beyond what that current assessed valuation was would go into a special fund for development purposes for that project for up to 5 years. Is that correct?
That may be the understanding. Yes, that's the understanding I have as well.
Okay, and what happens once the 5 years are up? The enhanced assessed valuation, would that assessed valuation continue in perpetuity? And if so, what would be how would the funds be dispensed going forward?
That's a good question. And I think that's what we need to find more about.
Yes.
This is a House bill. I
Yes,
haven't
sir.
spoken to the House author about it and specifically gotten what exactly he's intended to do with it. But I've heard there's some other possibilities with housing, with some other concerns in the CCID that they're trying to improve. So it's a vehicle to keep alive that we maybe can utilize.
Have we voted on the reverse repealer yet?
No, we have not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So,
Motion to add a reverse repealer.
heard the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Any further questions on the bill? Senator Blunt for a question.
Not for a question, Mr. Chairman, but if there are no questions, speak briefly.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you. My concerns are the same as Senator Horn. I represent most of the capital improvement district. I also represent parts of the city of Jackson that are not within the capital complex improvement district. And I think it's important, particularly for the new members on the committee, that you understand what the capital complex improvement district is. It is not a city. It is not a separate government. It is a street paving program where for the first time, the state, who has a substantial investment in Jackson and pays no property taxes in Jackson, recognizes that the state has an investment here and for the first time is going to be partly responsible for some of the infrastructure costs around this building. So when you see the work that was done in front of the Wright and Ferguson building at the intersection of High and Lamar, when you see work done on Capitol Street, when you see the work being done right now on State Street, that is state money being invested to pave streets. It's an infrastructure program. It's controlled by an independent board, not by the city of Jackson or city council, the DFA, with appointees from the governor, the lieutenant governor, speaker. And I think it's working well to do what it was designed to do, which is to improve infrastructure. It is not a separate city. It is not a place where some people in Jackson are entitled to one set of laws or penalties or investment incentives that are not available to people in other parts of the city. Now, I know Representative Lamar just wants to help. And I don't think that there's no casino in this bill. But we do need, I appreciate that folks want to invest in the city because I think a successful city is important to the state of Mississippi. But I want to emphasize that all of the city needs attention and all of the city needs support. And so when the state looks to provide incentives, and incentives are to do, the only reason government should be in the incentive business is to do things that the private sector is not capable of doing without the government intervening in the market. Otherwise, we just need to let the private sector do what they do. So we need to look at opportunities to improve the entire city of Jackson. There's a reverse repeater in the bill. We need to continue to talk about that. But there are lots of ways we could do that. We could provide more money to the current CCID to pave more streets and pave them faster. We could do what towns where our major three largest universities are located is support the fire department in those towns, which those towns do, but the state does not provide any money for fire protection. There are all sorts of ways that the state can benefit the city to the benefit of both the entire state and the entire city, and we need to look at that. There's a lot more to, but again, I think people want to help, and I appreciate that, and we'll just keep talking about it. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blunt. I would add, it's also not only a major paving project, it's also a policing and apparently a judicial project as well in the district. And it's more than just paving and water and infrastructure. It's also policing. And so I understand your concern, and I think that's why we want to keep it alive to see if there's anything that's valuable out of this that can help downtown Jackson and hopefully spur growth that spreads all across the city and not just in one area. Seeing no further questions on the bill, move for a motion. Motion is title sufficient to pass as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next bill is House Bill 1617. Senator Younger. He had to go to another meeting. Okay. Senator Whaley's going to speak on the bill on behalf of Senator Younger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Senator Younger handed this off to me and said, hey, won't you take care of this for me real quick? So he had another obligation he had to go to. So House Bill 1617, basically what it's dealing with, as I understand it, dealing with the Lowndes County Industrial Development Authority, as well as their Economic Development District, just giving them some direct authority to be able to acquire a new mega site within the county and their IDA and development area, where they would have this new mega site where they could be able to purchase property, enter into some agreements, be able to work with TVA as I understand it. And that's a basic explanation of the bill as I understand it.
Heard an explanation of the bill. Are there any questions on the bill? Seeing none, for a motion.
Title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. That bill will be reported out. We got one more bill that just got printed and brought up that we'll bring up today. It's House Bill 1525. And this language mirrors the Senate language. And I'm going to recognize Senator Johnson just a second when y'all get the bill. Recognize him to explain it. Everybody have a copy of the bill? All right. I recognize Senator Johnson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is the same as Senate Bill 2405, which we passed out earlier in the session. It allows for on-premise permitting, but not package retailers on community junior college campuses and university campuses. It would need to be, it's at their discretion whether they want to do this or not, and it would be within a qualified resort status on campus. That's an explanation of the bill.
Any questions on the bill? Seeing none, for a motion?
Is this what? No. Sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient, do pass. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion to rise and report. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Oh, man, that was